What is up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Today we are here at Lake Julian Disc Golf Course. I don't know if you can hear it, but it is very breezy out today. And we have the flippy PD. It's not really flippy, it's a straight PD. It flips up to flat when thrown really hard, and in a headwind it might turn and drift a good bit, and then it'll flex back. However, I was trying to throw the Halo Valkyrie in this slot, and what I came to determine was in wind and at lower elevation, the 9-speed rim was just not enough rim. But when I would try to throw the Trace, 11-speed rim just felt like a little bit too much rim. So where does that leave us? Guess what? Streamline, well, not Streamline, it is a company that is produced by MVP. This is Thought Space Athletics, the Ethos Construct, essentially Proton. This is the numbers of, I think it's 10, 5, -1, 2. So essentially the 10-speed version of the Trace. It's about the stability I want, or at least the Trace is, but the Trace just being a little bit faster, it's not quite what I'm looking for. So we're gonna match up all three of these today, and we'll see, is a PD just better? Or are there alternatives for your straighter options? Let's get into it. We're gonna start off with the Trace because it's been in the bag, and then PD, and then we'll see the Construct. There is a little bit of a, and now the wind died. It feels like it's coming off of that direction. So try to throw the flex shot. Since it's a tailwind, it's gonna help to stable them out. That's really good. And now the PD. I see a little bit more stability out of that, especially with a tailwind. It just doesn't have the -1 to help pull it. And now, let's see if the Construct can say anything to the straight PD slot. Honestly, I'm very pleased with that. We're gonna keep throwing, and it's probably gonna show up more when we start to get more of a headwind, or if we start to throw on forehand. But based off of this throw, the Construct feels more similar to a straight PD than the Trace does. The Trace is just too much of a distance driver, and it just has too much drift. It's great and it goes so far, but it's more of a true distance driver, and it's not really a control driver. Points are awarded 3, 2, and 1. We are going to go to the forehand now because I needed to be able to handle the forehand as well. And it doesn't get a wind read because it's throwing first. I'm pleased with that. Now the Trace. Committed better to the hyzer release on that, so obviously it's going to be a different shot. Now the PD. I don't think anything quite matches up to PD as far as distance and stability on a forehand. That being said, I can easily do this shot with a variety of other fairway distance drivers, or possibly even mid-range, just depending on where the wind's coming from. So this specific shot, not that important for me. I did want to see if it was going to kind of turn and if it was going to burn. It turned a little bit, but it did flex back, which honestly is all that you really need from the straighter version of the PD. Switch up the order a little bit with 4, 5 for the Construct, and the Trace has 3. PD obviously is going to feel more comfortable and confident on a forehand. Here on the backhand though, and now we have the wind in our faces coming off the left side. Those flags are blowing across that way, but I feel feels a little more headwindy than those flags are showing, but whatever. We're just gonna throw and see what happens. We're gonna release on hyzer, and do they stand up and turn? Do they stand up to flat? Do they just hold a hyzer? Let's see what happens. It's hard to beat that. It's really, really hard to beat that. We're going to give it our very best with the Construct though. That was thrown on hyzer and it did flip up and turn, and then it came back. That PD, even though it's C-line, it's 169, 68, 67, somewhere in that range. These are both 174. So while these are designed to be not quite as overstable, they are a little bit heavier. You're gonna need to see that on 18. That got some of the weirdest cross side wind gusts, and it's gonna be really hard to tell the stability of a throw that does that. However, it did flex. It did eventually fade out. Let's see what the Trace does for us. There is committed to hyzer, and it is a distance driver, so if you can get it spinning on that angle and keep it clean without the wobble, it's not that overstable. The crosswind makes it feel that overstable. It's a little head. It is almost straight left to right wind, so if these discs start to flip at all, they're going to want to pan more. So expect to see that when we go to throw these. Watch the flip up, and then watch as they hit that anhyzer, they're going to catch the crosswind and literally come up and keep going. If they can get to that anhyzer angle. We're going to see. Currently we're looking at 7 points each for the Construct and the PD, 4 points for the Trace. PD still has the box. Let's see what the Wind Fighter is going to do versus the discs that are just designed to be a little bit straighter. The wind basically turns that PD into a straight disc. Let's see what the Construct does. Let's see if I can get a clean snap on it and no wobble, because I think the wobble might have caused a lot of what we saw in the last hole. Better for the PD. Can you calm down so that I can test this? Okay. So, yeah, the crosswind makes discs that are designed to be overstable straighter, and it takes discs that are not designed to be straighter and makes them a little bit less stable. Hence what I said, once it got on the anhyzer angle, the wind caught it and it just pushed it. It faded out at the very end, but it moved a lot further right than the PD did because it had the tendency to want to flip just a little bit. Amount of hyzer to keep the Trace from turning and doing the exact same thing. The PD has something into a headwind that not many other discs have. However, I throw the Construct as my main go-to control driver, and then when it's windy, pull out a more stable PD, or do I just have 2 PDs in the bag? That's what I'm stuck on. I think I'm going to try the Construct for just a little bit, but so far Construct and PD are flying much closer to similar than the PD and the Trace are. I thought the Trace was going to be cool, and it is. It's kind of like a slightly beat Wraith already. It just doesn't, it's not, it is a distance driver. It's an 11 speed. The Construct is up 1 over the PD, and the Trace is essentially out of it. And we have essentially the same wind as the last hole. This wind coming off of the front left. So we're going to throw these on a hyzer and try to stay in the fairway. So for the Trace and the Construct, I'm actually going to aim at this left hillside, and the headwind and the drift should help pull it into the middle. Let's see if it works out in practice. That's really good. It held over a lot. It got to flat and held very straight with just a slow pan. That was really nice. Now, can the PD answer? I mean, I know that PD so well. It's really hard to beat a disc that you just know that well. Okay, so I think for a little while, like I said, we're going to put the Construct in instead of the PD. And I think it's going to do 2 things. It's going to open up another shot shape that I didn't really have, which is I can throw the PD into a headwind that's going to hold straight. I can throw the Construct into a headwind and I will get some turn. I will get a drift. And if I put enough hyzer on it, I'll get a late flip. But it's a little bit more controllable than the 11-speed Trace. So it's going to give me that extra little straighter, pushier shot shape that the PD wasn't necessarily giving me. And it's going to free up a little bit of space. So instead of worrying about, do I throw the stable PD or do I throw the straight PD, I can look at the wind and say, I need the Construct or I need the overstability of the PD. So sometimes mold minimalization is a really good thing, and sometimes mold minimalization can actually hamper you and make you all inside your head because you like one disc more than the other, even though it's not as good as the one you're trying to throw. I don't know if that makes sense. Let's go throw a couple more drives off at 18 and then close this out. So Trace has, except for the first throw, it has been the worst throw out of all of them every single time. So while the Trace is good, it's not the slot I'm looking for. So it's a good disc. Don't go out and get rid of all your Traces because I said it's not what I'm looking for. This is a distance driver, and I'm looking for just a touch slower, just a touch more controllable. We're gonna throw just these 2 off of this pad. They are both tied up. Let's see which one actually can go further if we give it a little bit of anhyzer. This one's gonna get the anhyzer on its own. This one I'm gonna have to give it just a touch. And let's see what happens. PD has the box here on the wild and wonderful hole 18. That is perfect for the hole, and it's perfect for the wind. The wind died right as I threw it, so you kind of got a lull, and now the crosswind is picking back up, so it's going to make the Construct a little interesting. I wish I'd thrown the Construct first instead of second. I'm also trying to wait for it to not be gusty before I throw. also a great throw. Gonna love to learn the angles of the construct and figure out exactly how much hyzer it needs to be thrown on into a headwind and exactly how much I can trust it with a tailwind as well. Hopefully you enjoy content like this. If so, please make sure to like the video. If you want to see new stuff, make sure to comment all of that down below, especially if you have what you think should be here for my Thunderbird, straight Thunderbird. And at this point, we're looking at the construct as well. If you want to see new stuff, make sure you're commenting that below, and please make sure you're subscribing. It helps you guys out with the subscriber only giveaways. Definitely helps me out as well. And until next time, see you out on the course. The wind is